Harry Samonte was a demon from hell, given the form of a man to run the company's ermita office. The life he led these days is a huge improvement from his former one. He used to lead a squad of demons that guarded and maintained a section of Hell's old lake of fire. The job did not really demand much from a demon, just prevent anyone from coming ashore. Thinks of ways to further torment the damned, and occasionally pin on them when they ask for water. These days, his job is to make sure that his office runs smoothly and all the transactions and deals made here earn the company a tidy profit. He does all of these while ensconced in an air-conditioned office and seated at a soft, comfortable, and ergonomically correct chair. The office is indeed a far cry from the hot, fetid place he came from. He was reading an email bulletin from the company's regional headquarters in Makati when the intercom buzzed and his secretary announced the arrival of his 2 p.m. appointment. He does not normally meet with potential clients, and job was for the frontline salespeople like Ted or Alan or Gwen. But he made an exception for Mr. Danilo Escobar, who contacted Harry directly. The man was formerly a governor of a province in the Visayas, and it did not matter that he no longer holds the gubernatorial office. To Harry, even an ex-politician equals rich. One look at the man's dossier and Harry saw a nice commission thrown his way if he persuaded the man to buy a really expensive plan. Money was no concern when he was in hell. But here in man's world, the life you live depends on the cash you have. And he really loved life in man's world. Harry took out a small mirror from a desk drawer and checked himself out, running his thumb through his teeth to make sure that no errant piece of vegetable or meat or rice grain from lunch had escaped his toothbrush. That you should always look good before a client, or a prospective client, in Mr. Escobar's case, was one of the very first things he learned when he accepted his posting in the company. Let him in. He spoke into the intercom after one last look in the mirror. He spared a look at the files and papers on his table and was satisfied that it looked neatly disorganized in a busy way. The door opened and Mr. Escobar was ushered in. He was an old man at least 70 years, still had a full head of hair, though now gone white, and sported a neatly trimmed mustache. He was clad in a blue checkered polo shirt, gray slacks, and brown loafers. A black leather clutch bag was tucked under one armpit. Harry rose from his chair, put on his best smile, and offered his right hand for a shake. Governor Escobar, good afternoon, he said. I'm Harry Samonte. Good afternoon, Mr. Escobar said. The older man shook Harry's hand but did not even try to return the smile. Harry gestured to him to take a seat in one of the chairs facing his table. "I want to send someone to hell," Mr. Escobar said, taking a seat, "and Ray Cruz referred your services to me." "Ah, yes," Harry said. "Mr. Cruz. He was one of our earliest clients. Bought plans for a book of beneficiaries at one time. How's the good congressman these days?" "Dying slowly of cancer. But the son of a bitch still raising hell at the lower house," Mr. Escobar said. "I'm so sorry to hear that. I wasn't assigned here yet when Mr. Cruz bought the plans, but I heard he was a good client," said Harry. He was tempted to add that when the congressman's hell-raising days at the House of Representatives are over and he dies of cancer, a spot in hell was waiting for him. Mr. Escobar had name-dropped Ray Cruz when he first called Harry 2 days ago. It was Roma, the original manager of the Amita office, who closed the deals with Mr. Cruz. Ever diligent, and hoping to make small talk about the ex-governor's friend, Harry looked up all pertinent files regarding Representative Cruz and discovered that someone had bought a plan for him. After the congressman dies, his soul will be transported to hell, specifically to a section of the Buddhist hell called Salghata, also known as the Crushing Naraka. There his soul will be made corporeal. The ground of the Crushing Naraka is made of hot iron, and it is surrounded by huge masses of rocks. These rocks smash together, crushing the being into jelly. After a time, the rocks come apart and life is restored to the being, and then the rocks smash together again. Anyway, Governor, would you like something to drink? Coffee? Tea? Scotch, perhaps? Harry said. Just water with ice, said Mr. Escobar. Harry pressed the talk button on the intercom and said, Lila, 2 bottles of water, please. And iced. Right away, sir, Lila's electronically filtered voice said. Harry then took out a glossy magazine, the company's catalog, from one of his desk drawers and slid it across the table to Miss Escobar. The old man leaned forward, picked it up, and looked at it. Its unadorned cover with a plain, shiny red. Mr. Escobar turned the cover and started leafing through it. You know, the old man began, not taking his eyes off the magazine. I thought Ray was bullshitting me when he told me what you guys did for him. He paused, turned a page, then another, and continued. And looking through this magazine of yours, I'm tempted to believe. But how? Can I sure what's in here is real and not some product of computers generated trick photography? Harry sat straight, his fingers stippled on the table. Trust me, hell is real, he said. I should know. You're not suggesting Mr. Escobar started, but broke off when the office door opened and Lila entered, carrying a tray containing 2 ice-filled glasses and 2 bottles of mineral water. She set the tray down on a side table near Mr. Escobar, uncapped the bottles in turn and poured the ice clinking against each other as they started to float. She handed one glass to Mr. Escobar, who promptly drank half of its contents. The other glass she handed to Harry, who took a sip and set it on his table. "Thank you, Lila," Harry said. Lila replied with a nod and a smile to each of the men and padded out the office. Harry's eyes followed her until she closed the door. He turned back to Mr. Escobar, who was still looking intently at him, searching for even the minutest detail that would betray his human form. The old man momentarily looked away as he put his half-empty glass on the side table. Harry took out a disc, stood up and walked to the TV set and DVD player set up on a table across the room. Mr. Escobar swiveled around in his chair, tracking him. "Yes, I'm from there, Mr. Escobar," he said. "And no, you can see my true form. As far as anyone's concerned, I'm human." "Bullshit. I'll believe you when I see the real you," said Mr. Escobar. "You can, if you want to. But within 24 hours, you'll be in a straitjacket and staring at a wall in a pavilion in Mandaluyong," Harry said. "And I really don't want to lose a prospective client. There is already a number of recent patients institutionalized at the National Center for Mental Health for seeing demons. Most were prospective clients who disbelieved what they were told and insisted that the salesmen prove their claims. Their minds broke when the man they were talking to transformed into something else, something their minds could not grasp. Some of the center's recent patients were the sensitive ones, the ones who can see through the masquerade put on by hell's denizens. Many of them has been dragged kicking and screaming to an ambulance while screaming that demons are all around us. A recent report claimed that children, the very young, could see demons too." He turned on the TV and DVD player and inserted the disc. "Supposing you are what you say you are you him?" Mr. Escobar asked. "Him? Lucifer." Harry looked back, smiled, and said, "No, Mr. Escobar. I'm just a middle management demon trying to earn a living." He picked up the DVD player's remote control and strode back to his chair. "Now, sir, watch so you can be further convinced. This is just a small sampling of what we have to offer. And maybe after we can talk about my commission," Harry said. Then press play on the remote. Color test bars filled the screen. Fades to black. Then white noise. But instead of the buzz that accompanies white noise, a howl issues from the TV set's speakers. The image refocuses, then coheres. A blizzard hammering, a frozen landscape, a dozen figures trudging across the icy wasteland. The camera pushes in. The figures become more distinct. Naked men and women with red streaks all over their body. The camera follows the straggler of group struggling to get up after the wind had knocked him down. The crimson streaks on his body are wider, redder, and more fluid. He is on his knees when another gust of wind slams into him. He clutches his right arm just above the elbow. The camera zooms in as the man checks the damage. The wind has sheared the skin of his upper arm, revealing his muscles to the bitter chill. Thousands of bleeding cuts line his body, and more appear every time a gust hits him. He gets up, staggers, eyes searching for his fellow damned. He walks a few steps and then a gale force wind hits him, throwing him a few meters forward. The camera follows him to where he lands. This time, the wind has removed most of his muscle, bone showing through. More bloody cracks appear on his torso. The man tries to raise his arm, cries out in pain. The shout stolen by the wind's howl. The man struggles to his feet, right arm hanging limp, and ambles on. The screen fades to black, fades into a filthy body of water. Bubbles break and pop on the surface. Geysers of flame erupt intermittently. A hand comes out of the brown muck, fingers claw air, and it's quickly pulled back down. The camera tracks to the left and a man's head surfaces. He sucks in lungfuls of air. He looks around, shouts frantically as he spots something off screen to the right. He swims. The camera follows him. The man was going full on when he suddenly disappears, dragged back below. Second pass, a big splash is heard. The camera tracks right and left until it spots two figures struggling. It's the man fighting with a woman. She claws at the man's face, gouges its eyes out. She follows with a series of punches to the head, knocking him unconscious. She leaves him floating face down and swims towards the direction he was taking earlier. She reaches her goal, land. She walks tiredly ashore, lies on the sand, catching her breath, relief on her face. A grunt is heard over the speakers and the woman turns. A pig-faced demon. You heard that right. A pig-faced demon emerges from the line of trees caught by another porcine demon. The first demon takes hold of her feet and the other carries her by the armpits. They walk back to the beach and throws the woman back into the water. The screen fades to black and a man walking on an arid plain appears. He is naked, save from the iron clasp strapped to his right hand. He walks on feet thick with blisters. His eyes alert, darting left and right. His ears perk up every now and then for any sound. Real or imagined, a shout is heard. and another man, similarly armed, runs towards him. The first man braces, holding out his clawed hand in a defensive stance. The attacker jumps the few remaining feet and tackles the first man to the ground. He straddles the fallen man, pins his arms to the ground with his legs. He raises his clawed hand and drives it into the other man's neck. The first man's eyes go wide. Blood gurgles in his mouth and oozes from his neck wounds. His body goes limp, then still. The attacker withdraws his claws and howls, then stands and walks away from the body. 2 minutes, maybe 3 after the attacker has gone, the body convulses, the wounds gone. His eyes open. His chest heaves as he takes restorative breath. The man gets up, wipes the blood from his mouth, and walks the arid plain, naked save for iron claws strapped to his right hand. The screen fades to black, followed by a staccato of images. People swimming in river of knives. Demons driving flaming spears into people until flames issue out of their bodily orifices. People climbing a mountain made of serrated blades. People being fried in oil, disemboweled by saws, having their tongues ripped out. Pounded until they become fine powder. People hanging upside down on giant scales. "Stop it," Mr. Escobar said. "It still runs a couple minutes more." "Stop it now," Mr. Escobar said, turning to face Harry. Harry pressed stop on the remote. He rose and walked to eject the disc and switch off the appliances. On his way back to his table, he glanced at the old man. Mr. Escobar was sitting still, staring at the bare wall behind Harry's table. Harry sat down and stowed away the disc. As Harry was closing the drawer where he put the disc, he heard Mr. Escobar muttering unintelligently. "I beg your pardon?" Harry asked. "It's not enough." "Well, I'm sorry you remain unconvinced. Too bad that you think what you just saw was $1 million CGI extravaganza of a trailer, and not the real hell," Harry said. He waited for a response from the old man, but Mr. Escobar was still staring at the wall. Harry said, "If you want to risk it, I can show you my demon form, or if you prefer, Lila can do it for you. She's a succubus and might be a bit easier to..." "What?" "If revealing our demon forms to you can convince you we're who we say we are and hell is..." No, Mr. Escobar said. "I know what I saw was real. It didn't have that plastic feeling that computer images have." "Then, what's not enough?" "The punishments I saw. I want worse for the son of a bitch who wronged me." Harry smiled, relieved. He thought that he'd lost his chance to further add to his savings. Transforming into his demon form and back is physically draining and painful. But he will do anything for the sale, even if he had to call Lila in to reveal her true form and kick a portion of his commission over to her. Ah, he said, we have far more forms of torment in our catalog. We have a plethora of them. The old man picked up the magazine which has fallen to the floor while he was watching the presentation. Or you can avail our custom plan, Harry said. Mr. Escobar looked up from the page he was reading. Custom plan? You tell me the form of torment you have in mind, and if it does not have the slightest resemblance to any of our multitudes of torment, we'll build it for you, or rather, for your chosen damned. Anything I can imagine. Any torment you can imagine. The sky, as to say, is the limit. What we have is plenty of space. Our company has snapped up most of Purgatory and is developing it into more torment chambers. Mr. Escobar sat up straight at what he heard. Purgatory. What happened to Purgatory? He asked. The other side finally gave its inhabitants a free pass through the pearly gates, Harry said. Our higher-ups negotiated like hell to get some of Purgatory's souls, but heaven wouldn't budge. In the end, they got the souls and leased most of the real estate to us. Harry took a sip of water. Mr. Escobar stared on. His forehead furrowed and his mind conjured up images of torment that he will be inflicted upon the man he hates. So tell me the torment, Harry said. Sky's the limit. I can imagine very harsh things to be inflicted upon Pedrosa's soul, Mr. Escobar said. But I have a feeling that this custom plan of yours is expensive. Very expensive. Mid to high 70 figures. Aye, the old man said, then sighed. My imagination may be limitless, but my bank account is not. He flipped the catalog open and resumed his search for a fitting torment. Harry tried hard to keep his impatience at bay and swallowed the words cheap bastard and stinging to keep him from hurling them at the old man. He had hoped the old man would opt for the custom plan as he could easily afford it. According to Hell's dossier, the old man's bank accounts were not limitless, but they almost are. A man will need to live 6 times the average lifespan to exhaust all the money in Mr. Escobar's various bank accounts. Harry closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and felt himself relaxed. He put on another smile and tried to think of things that can help Mr. Escobar choose a torment. Mr. Escobar let out a grunt. Anything wrong, sir? Harry asked. The old man looked up and said, Huh? Oh, it's just your health's very different from the one they taught us growing up. Mr. Escobar flipped back a few pages and said, like it says here that in one chamber, the nervous system of the damned are used as circuitry, as microprocessors for Hell's computers. Harry ruefully smiled at that torment. a low-grade demon he knew, not known as Joel, when he came to work in this world, came up with that. It ended up saving the company billions, and Joel was made VP for IT and has an office at company headquarters in Paris. Joel used to be Harry's second in command in a section of the Lake of Fire. He became enamored of the human's inventions, the computer, that he'd pick the brains, often painfully, of any computer techie that managed to end up in hell. And because of that one brilliant idea, human as microprocessors, Joel ended up in Paris. He is one of the few success stories in hell, and it never fails to turn Harry's stomach. Hell has evolved beyond the Lake of Fire, sir, Harry said. Upper management decided to diversify when they decided to open Hell up for business. So you get selections dedicated to other religions' version of Hell. And what religion does the microcircuitry punishment fall under? Mr. Escobar said. None of them. That's an example of Hell's ingenuity, brought by efficiency needs. Well, I don't think that punishment fits Pedrosa, Mr. Escobar said. This Pedrosa you speak of, why send him to hell? Harry asked. He knew the whole story, of course, about the political rivalry between the old man's family and Pedrosa's, and how the latter stole the governorship from the former. Their family's long sordid history was in Hell's dossier on the old man. Harry asked because hearing the hate, the distaste one man has for another man issue forth from the hateful man's lips brings a certain degree of glee to his kind. The sensations it brings feel a bit like a sweetheart whispering sweet nothings to your ear, followed by a lick. He's a goddamn thief who stole something valuable from me, said Mr. Escobar, turning the pages of the catalog as he spoke. Other people might think he's smart and charming and good public servant, but they don't know him like I do. He's a scum. This Pedrosa might have a weakness. Everybody has one, Harry said. The old man paused. From his reading, his face looked up, forehead furrowed once again, in thought. Women. He's a horny bastard, he said. There you are, Harry said. That son of a bitch pants and briefs are not enough to keep his prick hidden from view when he sees a woman he likes. Try page 134, sir, Harry said. A rustle of papers as Mr. Escobar turned the pages. He finally arrived at the page he was looking for, and his face genuinely brightened for the first time since he came into the office. Area 12, Sector 2. Mr. Escobar read aloud. In this level, souls of the damned spend eternity with an orgasm that never comes, and ejaculation that never gushes forth. Further adding to the torment are Hell's legions of vivacious succubi who tease and prod the damned. Mr. Escobar's face cracked and laughter filled the office. Jesus, Mr. Escobar said after he realized his joy. I haven't laughed that hard in years. Harry took out some forms from a folder on top of his table. He readied his fountain pen. I'll definitely take this one. Horny bastard deserves it. It'll be like shaking a bottle of Coke but never taking the cap off. Excellent choice, sir, Harry said. There are also some forms you need to fill out, he said as he handed them to Mr. Escobar. Will I see proof when he gets there? The old man asked. He pulled his chair nearer to the table and began to write. You'll be given access to a website where you can view real-time footage of his sufferings. The old man wrote in silence for a while. He reviewed the forms, then returned them to Harry. So that will be 1,000,000 pesos. Half now? Mr. Escobar asked, taking out the handkerchief and wiping the corners of his eyes. 1,000,000 pesos, half now, half upon the soul's delivery, and you can get a discount if you're interested. The old man paused from his writing and straightened up. A discount's always welcome. What do I have to do? Pledge your immortal soul to Lucifer, Harry said. Harry sat there silent, the smile gone from his face. All tear and joy drained from the old man's face, replaced by a quizzical look. Then they simultaneously erupted in laughter. You had me going there, you son of a gun. You had me thinking, Mr. Escobar said, mellowing down. You have no idea how many times our salespeople say that, and people actually buy it. I almost did, Mr. Escobar said, then laughed again. Harry found the laughter infectious and joined in. After a while, the old man settled down, took out the checkbook from his clutch bag, wrote out the check, and handed it to the other man. So that's it? I have to wait for him to die? You don't have a service that could, say, expedite his passing? I'm sorry, we don't. Our company's purely concerned with the soul's placement, Harry said. I'll probably talk to some people I know, said Mr. Escobar. Harry checked the forms that Mr. Escobar filled out. One page lacked a signature. You forgot to sign one, he said. The old man promptly took the pen and paper back and signed on the dotted line. Mr. Escobar took his bottle of mineral water, poured its remaining contents, and drank it all down. Say, how much commission will you get out of this? Not much, Harry said. 10%? Stingy bosses, eh? You'll get 100,000 in all for this deal? Yes, sir. You're right. It's not much, Mr. Escobar said. The old man stood up, prompting Harry to do same. The two shook hands, and the old man, in better spirits than when he entered the office not 2 hours ago. You're okay for a demon. I'm sure I'll be doing more business with you in the future, Mr. Escobar said. I'll expect that, Harry said. Harry walked the old man to the door. He was turning the knob when he remembered one more thing. Look, sir, he began. You made me a few thousand pesos richer today and the promise of future business, so I'll let you have the inside track on something. Mr. Escobar turned away from the door to face Harry. Yes? The thing is, our company's been holding talks with the other side, Harry said, glancing up briefly. They're talking about a limited offer for now. But when the deal pushes through, would you like to have a place in heaven?
For more videos like this on YouTube, please click like, subscribe, and hit the bell button. But if you're watching on Facebook, do click like and hit the follow button. Thank you, dear humans.